Welcome back to the shop. Today we've got a new addition to the shop, and that's a new bench grinder. You can see bits and pieces of the carcass laying around. I would have tried to keep the safety guard on there, but it was hitting everything that I put on there, and you'll probably see why in a little bit. But anyway, I'm not completely against safety. You know, there's a time and a place for it. I know you guys rip on me for wearing flip-flops all the time, but anyway, when I'm working with heavy stuff, I wear shoes, but when I'm tinkering around with little stuff. Anyway, so I've dismembered the new grinder. I'll talk a little bit more about it when I get there. The lathe, I finally got the right belt in. It actually got two belts in, so that's going to go back together. That should be interesting. I'll show you some bits and pieces about how I'm going to have to fix that lathe, because the guy that had it before me took some indiscretions with that. So anyway, that's another thing. But what I was hoping to do today was come back out here and keep putting coats of paint on my traveling sprinkler, but that's not going to work, because here I paint this thing, and I said I'm going to take my time and paint it real nice, and it's going to look great, and I'm going to learn to be patient. But you know, there's nothing sticking, and it's super aggravating, because I go through and clean these all up. I buy the right paint, Rust-Oleum. It's got relatively good reviews most of the time. I sandblast it to bare metal. I clean it with solvent. There's nothing. There's no residual. There's no oils. There's no grease. There's no nothing on here. I hit it with a self-etching primer. Let it dry. Do everything that I'm supposed to do, and this stuff flakes off of here like it's icing on a cake. It is just so frustrating. So this sets me back quite a bit. This is going to go back to the sandblaster. It's going to go back to square one. And here, to be fair, it's still hanging up out there, so I'm not going to bring it in. But the body of this, the main chassis of the tractor, I painted with the Hammerite paint, which as far as I know is not related to Rust-Oleum, and it has the same thing. It's the same primer, it's the same metal, it's different paints. The primer seemed to have adhered to this, but the Rust-Oleum and the Hammerite didn't adhere to the primer. So it's got to be atmospheric. I mean, it was a super light coat. You can still see how light it is. I mean, I didn't even get full coverage. And if I didn't get full coverage, why is it scraping off so easily? You know, if you guys have a constructive comment, please let me know. If you want to say that I suck at painting, I already know that. Save your time. So, anyway, I'm looking for any suggestions. You know, whatever. Oh, and beyond that, I'll insert a picture. I put this in my goddamn barbecue grill at 160 degrees for 10 hours just to make sure that it was on there good. Nothing. So anyway, this sets me back on this project. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to proceed, even though I'm going to proceed with cleaning this up. And this is not necessarily going to be a good video, so I probably recommend that you change it right now, because I'm just going to be cleaning this up and probably put some time lapse or whatever. But the purpose for me doing this is one, I need to clean it up, and two, this is going to give me a little bit of a chance to sort of wear in the new fiber wheel that I have for my 8-inch grinder. So we'll see how that works, and it will true the wheel up slowly but surely. I don't know exactly the best method to go about truing these things up other than to use them. So anyway, let's move over to the new grinder, and I will show you what that's about. Alright, so those of you that follow the channel will know that I talk quite a bit about the buffers, which is this style. This is a 6-inch buffer by POWERTEC. And this has been very, very good tool. This thing doesn't owe me a dime. It's very cheap. Amazon. It continues to work well. And I found a 3600 RPM Delta 8-inch grinder on Craigslist or whatever the other day. They got it and put new wire wheels on it and everything. 2 new big wire wheels. And it's just too much. It is too scary. The 3600 RPM is just adds a degree of tension, adds a degree of danger that I wasn't comfortable with. And having 2 wire wheels on the same machine, I guess there's some benefit to that, but what I really like is these big fiber wheels. As you can see, I've had this small one, and I've got quite a lot of comments about this. I'm happy with it. It's holding up well, but I went ahead and bought the big 2-inch wide one. And I sort of had to adapt it to fit on here. I had to cut some washers because, you know, it's not designed for this. And when I had this on the big 3600 RPM, it just spinning too fast. So anyway, for my own safety, I went ahead and just bit the bullet and went and bought this 1725 RPM. So we could see that this wheel's out of balance a little bit, but it's nice and smooth. It's bolted down nicely, and I think this is going to serve me well. It's a little bit bigger. It's going to give me a little bit more latitude in terms of really hogging on things. And anyway, we're going to do some time lapse of me cleaning up the traveling sprinkler arms. Now, if I had to classify this, what I would say is that this wheel, this fiber wheel, is probably a good, I mean, maybe if you don't have room for a belt sander, like my 42-inch belt sander or whatever, I would say that this wheel is nice because, as far as I know, the regular buffing compound, if you're going to use a buffer, it's possible to like really get down and cut with the buffing wheel, but you know, you're really going to put in a lot of time, generate a lot of heat, probably go through a lot of roux. But this fiber wheel is a good intermediary, and I would say that it's one of the viewers actually said it was a good step in between like your wire wheeling and your sanding, like 220 grit. It probably, from your 220 grit to your buffing stage, that's what this wheel would be like, would fill that gap, that particular area. But anyway, what I'm trying to do today is just, like I said, true the wheel up a little bit, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. You can see now that maybe in the time lapse earlier it may have not been so evident, but the wheel was hopping because it was out of round so much, but now it's sort of trued itself up a little bit, and if you will, I've sort of come through and sort of cut that out, cut the hop out of it, so it's much more stable now. There's just, I mean, minimal vibration. This is a cup of water sitting on top of it now, so you know, you can see that it's running pretty good. And if it's really out of balance or whatever, you want to be leery, because you don't want this thing blowing up in your goddamn face. So anyway, all this is to say is that for anybody who's asking, I think the 1725 is just safer, just all around better at the 8-inch for me. My small wheel, my buffer, it's a 3600 RPM, but the difference is, and I sort of had trouble articulating it last time, but the rim speed, while the RPMs are higher, the actual distance that this outside wheel is traveling is way less. It's just not, it's just not as catastrophic. It doesn't seem nearly as dangerous with this smaller wheel and the higher RPM. I mean, it's really moving around, don't get me wrong. And it's nice, it cuts. But when you get to the 8-inch size at 3600 RPM, it is a completely different animal. And no doubt there's an application for that, but when you're out here to have fun, you don't want to die. So this is a nice comfortable speed for me. I'm super happy to have this. The other 3600 RPM wheel that I have, you know, it's gonna stay on the shelf. Alright, well I got the, well I'm sort of breaking this thing in, I'm going to go ahead and clean up a set of Kleins that I got here. Done a lot of these things, and Scout Crafter does a really good job with this, so I'm not even going to put this in the thumbnail, but anyway, it'll be a treat for all of y'all that made it this far through this horrible video. Now look at those. That is a good looking set of pliers. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys like this kind of stuff, please subscribe. The next thing I'm going to be doing, I'm not sure that I need to demonstrate sandblasting the paint off of these things again. It's just, you know, there's really no utility in that. So I think I might skip a day of video, or maybe I'll include that later on. Who knows? But I think the next video you'll see probably be the lathe. We'll see how that goes. I got a lot of stuff going on this weekend, including some interior painting, blinds, stuff that I don't want to do, you probably don't want to see. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and hit these with some furniture polish, put them back in the drawer, put them to work. They're super nice. I love the Klein coats. Scout Crafter, thanks for turning me on to these. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. Have a good day.